Welcome to the Lost Books of Lockdown, matching authors with readers who might otherwise never have met. I'm Nikki Vallance, I'm the host of the group and the author of relationship mystery Pivotal. And I'm really excited to have with me here today Jessica Knauss. I hope that's said your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not meant to pronounce the K. Who is here to talk about her book, Our Lady's Troubadour. But it's not the only book that she has. And I'm sure we'll talk about her journey to where she's at today and what's coming next as well. Just before we do that, I want to remind everybody that if you're watching live and you want to speak to us, we'd love to look at your comments and answer any questions that you might have. But if you can just connect StreamYard to Facebook, so give it permission to do that so that we can see your name. Otherwise, anyone who's watching will be posting anonymously, and it's just a little bit odd for us to try and answer those questions. And lots of people watch on catch up. If you're doing that, please do also put in any questions and comments that you might have, and we will try and pick those up after the broadcast. And one last thing, if we mention any links to any resources or any groups, and of course all of the links to Jessica's social media and her books, we will be adding those at the end of the broadcast, so you don't need to sort of furiously try and scribble whilst we're talking. And that leaves me to say hello to Jessica.
Hello. Greetings from Spain.
Thank you so much for being here. So I wanted to first of all start out by, I guess, starting at the beginning. So asking you where your writing journey began, and often it starts way back before we even think of writing a book.
Yes, my writing journey began possibly before I was able to form memories. One memory that I do have is of taking a notebook and a pencil and attempting to write before I had even been taught to read. So it goes that far back for me. There's like nothing else I've ever wanted to do. So
fantastic. Okay, so then if we fast forward a little bit to the point at which you thought, yeah, I can do this. I can write a full length book. You were already writing stories at that point, I think. Is that right?
Yes, I've always written stories. And at university, I did an honors thesis, which was to write a novella. So I got a little bit of formal training.
Yeah.
And my first novel actually turned out to be an epic. So I started within the novel's full blast. The first draft was like 150,000 words. So there was no kind of in between for me. It was really short or really long.
Okay. So when you did your novella at university, were you trying at that point to become an author? Was that your plan, or was it just that it was a love that you had, a creative love that you had, and it was just a way of expressing that through doing the degree?
I absolutely have always intended to be a published author. Yes, so that was
part of the plan.
Part of the plan, for sure.
Okay. So when you started writing your epic, did you know that you were going to write an epic, and did you know even what an epic was? Because I think people perhaps don't realize that there are expectations for the length of books, the number of words, depending on the genre. There's different sort of kind of expectations for that. Did you know anything about what you were writing, or did you just write it and then worry about that later?
So my first novel is Seven Noble Knights, which I have here behind me. Right. And yeah, I knew it was going to be epic because it is based on an epic poem with tons of characters and just lots of action to get through. So I did take it on with quite a bit of trepidation, but I knew what kind of audience it would have and what kind of beats I should hit and all of those kind of craft things for sure. And it's really, really, maybe it's been a crutch for me getting into historical fiction because the story already exists and I just have to kind of hang all the words on it and get it into a consumable form.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
It was fun.
So we were chatting a bit before, and you sort of said people always ask you this question, you're never quite sure how to answer it. But I'm really curious to know. Obviously, you've always known you wanted to write, but picking the era that you're writing about. So talk a little bit about that era and what it was about that made you think, oh yeah, this is something I'm curious to write about, or I want to get into.
So as I write in the introduction to Our Lady's Troubadour, I think that was a watershed moment for me was when I was in a class. I was studying in Cordoba in Spain, and it was the history of music. And one of the first days, they put they played a song in the context of the rhythm. The professor introduced the rhythm first through a song that we all knew, which was America from West Side Story. And said, now listen to this, and you'll hear the exact same rhythm, because this is a Hispanic rhythm. Okay, what are we doing here? And that music came through the loudspeakers and just totally changed my life, because it was a Cantiga de Santa Maria. Oh my goodness, that really opened up a can of worms, because that led to the figure of Alfonso X. Who is, I mean, how can you not love Alfonso X if you're someone like me? Because in contrast to all the warrior kings of the Middle Ages, this is a king whose big fame is books, translations, wanting to learn, just like me, right? So I really saw myself in that. And his literature is an amazing accomplishment, because we're talking about the 13th centuries. Spanish hadn't really been written down before this point, and for it to be so beautiful right at the start, it's amazing. So I could talk about this forever. So
so it was a complete inspiration, and lots and lots of connection you felt from that moment where you discovered this connection. So that's interesting. I'll mention later on, but later this week we're having a wider discussion about creativity and music, and creativity and writing and well-being, with a professional music teacher and coach called Emma Nottas. She's coming on to the Business of Books Live on Friday, and they totally are connected. And I think maybe the same parts of the brain are sort of activated by those different forms of expression. And it goes, for some people it goes down the music route, and for some people it goes down the word route, and obviously some people write lyrics for songs and write the songs, and it connects. But I think that drive for learning and that sort of creative way of thinking is all connected, definitely, and that's what we'll be talking about on Friday. So you're a prime example of how that
that's great.
Excellent. So so your first book was based on an epic poem. Your second book is Our Lady's Troubadour. So tell us a little bit about the story and what people would expect if they were picking up the book.
So it was about 2019, just to give you some context. And I realized that 2021 was coming up really fast. And 2021 is important because on November 23rd, 2021, Alfonso X turned 800 years old. Wow. So, wow, I wanted to really participate in that amazing anniversary. I wanted to do all kinds of things. Exhibitions and concerts because of the music, and who knows, conferences. And then all of that kind of went away when the pandemic hit. Yeah. So I took a step back, but then realized that I had 3 short stories already. 3 short stories based on some of the miracles in the Cantigas de Santa Maria. And I thought, well, maybe if I work really hard, I could get 7 more, and I'll have 10 short stories, and that'll make a book, and I can get it out in time for the anniversary. And that's exactly what happened. Confinement, as we called it in Spain, was a really great time to do some writing. And I got probably 5 more of the stories at that point. And then the last 3 after we were set back out into the wild. And it was a kind of a real rush there at the end, but got it out before November 23rd, 2021. And I'm really pleased that I was able to make that contribution in spite of it all.
Fantastic. Okay, so obviously you've achieved your childhood or your lifetime dream to become a published author. There's a couple of things you've mentioned to me that are quite significant in terms of the support behind you, the writer, that helped you get where you are today. And obviously the journey carries on after this, but from where you are today. So you've mentioned some things that have really helped with your career so far. So talk a little bit about why you think your critique group that you've joined and have been a member of for a long time, how it's helped you, and how important it is if anybody else is out there and they're sitting on their own and they're trying to write and haven't found a group yet. What being part of a group can do for you whilst you're writing your books.
My group has been extremely important in my eventual publication, for sure. I joined this group in 2011, so a very long time ago, when I was living in the Tucson area. And it's an in-person group. And thankfully, when I moved away, they let me join in with Skype at the time. We moved on to Zoom now because that's more timely. But which was wonderful because we did have this this thing going, and you really, when you find it, you shouldn't let it go. That's for sure. Because I had been looking for a critique group before, and there was never that kind of will to keep going, to really work on writing, to get together on a regular basis, to read other people's work, to do all of that. But in my group, we read each other's work every month, and we give constructive critiques. And it's just so incredibly useful. You really can grow as a writer. You're not just kind of writing and sending it out into the world. It's it gets the improvement is incredible. And some other members of my group have won prizes and been published in very prestigious places. And never be in a group where you're the best writer. That's a really good piece of advice too.
Yes, for sure. Now you sort of had looked at others, but this one, you landed in this one, and this one really felt like it was going to stay the course and do its job. Because people were committed, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, it has morphed. The membership of it has changed quite a bit over the years, but the founding member and myself have been there since the beginning, and I think maybe our stick-to-itiveness has had some influence there.
Yeah, fantastic. And the other thing you mentioned was, particularly in terms of shaping your stories for an audience, you mentioned you had the help of a book coach. So tell us about that experience, how they helped you, what kind of things you got from it that helped your writing work better.
So the one thing about my group, which is an advantage and a disadvantage, is that none of them write historical fiction. So they get the texts. They don't know what my audience is really looking for.
No.
So I felt a little bit alone in that, and I wanted to make Our Lady's Troubadour just the best thing it could be. So I was on social media with Suzanne Dunlap, who is a book coach, and she specializes in historical fiction. And I said, "Oh, I really would like her eyes on my project here." And she did. She helped me so much to structure the book, figure out exactly how the story should work together, and what the readers are expecting. Really, we had lots of conversations about reader expectations. So it was great.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the group, the critique group gives you one thing, which is effectively writers who are readers. So they're kind of giving you the feedback that the reactions a reader might have to that raw material, which help you to shape it so that it reads better and that it catches people's imaginations and all of that sort of thing. But a book coach is really actually, well, it depends on what they're doing for you, but they can either be mentoring you to help with your mindset, because sometimes that's actually just the biggest thing that gets in the way. But also they probably have more experience than you, and so they're going to be saying, well, it will work better if you do it like this, in terms of the structure, and as you say, the beats and where to have, where the story ebbs and flows. And it also makes it less of a one-man job. I imagine, I might be wrong because I don't have an agent yet, but I imagine that if you have a good agent, that you may well have a similar kind of experience with them, because they're closer to the actual business end of the market. So they know what the editors are looking for and what the audience is looking for. So they can sort of translate what's needed into you so that you can put it into the creative process. But somebody's just, I don't know who it is, they haven't mentioned who they are, but somebody said that we're the second people to have mentioned book coach. They've not heard of one before. So I'm actually a coach, but I don't call myself a book coach, because I'm helping writers who may not even have a book yet, who may not even be confident enough to call themselves a writer yet, as well as people who are authors already. But in the main, I focus on, I'm not talking about the kind of business end of books. I'm talking about that whole confidence, self-discipline process. And I think you mentioned this as one of the key things in terms of the skills that you need to be successful. Having a routine, helping someone find the right routine for them. All these different things are pillars that you can use to build your career upon. But coaching at the end of the day is really helping you to get the best out of you. And I'm guessing that's what happened. She was helping you to pull out all the best bits and put them in a form that actually was going to work. Is that what your experience was?
I would describe it that way. It was a very, very positive experience. If it didn't cost so much money, I might do it again.
You have to pick your moments with coaches. I'm a coach myself, as I said, but I've had probably 4 in the whole time I've been writing. And I tend to go to them when I feel like I need something to shift. When I'm stuck with something, not so much with the book, but when I'm stuck with something that's getting in the way, and I don't seem to be able to find what it is, or I know what it is, but I don't know how to solve the problem. And then when you do, if you can invest in it, it gives you a step change. You get through that challenge and you kind of seem to fly out the other side. There's this momentum that sort of starts to happen, which you don't necessarily feel like you've got control over. But you end up in a completely different place than when you started. So it gets you from A to B.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard to get that kind of momentum when you're by yourself.
I was going to say, do you think you could have got there on your own? Probably, but it would have taken twice as long, if not more. So
and time was a factor with my book. So
of course, because you mentioned that in terms of the deadline. Excellent. Okay. So what's next? What's coming next from your? Are you still going to write the next book? Is it in the same kind of era? Is that sticking with that? What's happening?
It looks like it's going to be in exactly the same era. I'm starting to do a lot of these books behind me just arrived on Monday. My mother sent them to me from the United States. They're from back when I was studying my PhD. And I'm going to be reading through those so that I have good research for the next novel that I'm going to write, which I'm intending to be a biographical novel of Queen Violante, who was Alfonso's queen. Not a whole lot is known about her, so I'm getting kind of geared up to make up plausible things to happen to her.
Yeah, that's kind of the best of both worlds, isn't it? Because
it is.
The structure, and then the imagination can spark from that. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I always ask this question of all my guests as we finish. So, who would you invite to your virtual dinner party? An author that you'd want to meet and talk to and sort of grill and find out from them what advice they might give you. Who would that be?
I think I would really love to have a sit down with Miguel de Cervantes, right? I mean, who wouldn't? I have the impression that he was a very nice person, first of all. Yeah. Second of all, I would want to let him know about the impact that his works have had, because he lived his entire life thinking that he was a bit of a failure, and it's pretty obvious that he wasn't a failure at all by any way, shape, or form. So I would just really like to give that gift to him, because I would hope somebody would do that for me if I was in that position. Yeah. And and also he's had a fascinating life. Tax collector, the dramatist, captive in Algeria for 5 years, all kinds of crazy things. So it's not like there would be nothing to talk about. So that's who I would choose.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. Well, I can't believe it. It's, as ever, it always happens. We always run out of time. We never get a chance to talk about everything we want to talk about. Maybe you can come back when you finish the next novel and talk to me then. That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you so much for being here. Just wanted to say, next week we've got next Wednesday for the author showcase, we've got Sophie Lizelle. She's coming to talk to us about her work and her writing and her writing journey. And this Friday, as I said, mentioned earlier on, we've got Emma Notage. She is a music teacher. She was a primary school teacher. That's her original background. She's now also a coach. And we're going to be talking about a wider conversation about how creativity and music are linked, and how it's also linked to well-being, and how all of that can help writers to access their creativity and inspire them to do good work. So that's going to be a really interesting discussion. I don't know how many people have seen the poll. There is a poll which has been in the group since Monday. So if you do want to drive the conversation and have any questions that you think might be something that Emma can answer for us, by all means, either vote for the questions that are there or add your own questions in, and we'll try and cover as many of those as we can. And yeah, it's just there's more of these going up to the end of this month, and we were just chatting before we came on air. There's so many ideas I have for this group, but it isn't just my group. It's a group for all the people who are in it, and all of you are amazing at supporting each other. We've got readers, we've got writers, we've got aspiring writers. So if there is anything you want to talk about or anything you want to ask other people or me, just pop a post in the group and see if we can get the conversation going about how we can use this vehicle to help us all. Yeah, I will be back next week, as I said, to see Sophie. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure we could have talked for at least 3 hours, but unfortunately we can't. So, but I look forward to seeing you again at some point, hopefully.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.